Moses is one of the most influential figures in biblical history, known for his unwavering faith, leadership, and obedience to God. His journey, from being a helpless baby in a basket to leading the Israelites to the brink of the Promised Land, is a testament to divine purpose and human resilience. During a time when Pharaoh had ordered the death of all newborn Hebrew boys, Moses' mother devised a daring plan to save him. She placed him in a basket and set it afloat on the Nile River, trusting in God's protection. Pharaoh's daughter discovered the baby, took pity on him, and raised him as her own in the royal palace. Though raised as an Egyptian prince, Moses never forgot his Hebrew roots. He lived a life of privilege, receiving the best education and training. However, his connection to his people's suffering would eventually shape his destiny. As Moses grew older, he became increasingly aware of the harsh treatment of the Hebrew slaves. One day he witnessed an Egyptian beating a Hebrew man and, in a moment of anger, killed the Egyptian. This act forced him to flee Egypt. Moses sought refuge in Midian, where he started a new life as a shepherd. He married Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, and lived a quiet, humble life until God called him for a greater purpose. While tending his flock, Moses encountered a burning bush that was not consumed by the flames. It was here that God revealed himself and commanded Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. This encounter marked the beginning of Moses' divine mission. Moses initially hesitated, doubting his ability to lead and fearing rejection. However, God reassured him with signs and the promise of divine assistance, including the help of his brother Aaron. Moses returned to Egypt and demanded that Pharaoh release the Israelites. When Pharaoh refused, God sent 10 devastating plagues, demonstrating his power and forcing Pharaoh to relent. As the Israelites fled, Pharaoh's army pursued them. In one of the most iconic moments in biblical history, Moses, with God's power, parted the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to cross safely. The pursuing Egyptian army was swallowed by the waters. At Mount Sinai, Moses received the 10 Commandments, a set of divine laws that would guide the Israelites in their covenant with God. This moment solidified their identity as God's chosen people. The Ark of the Covenant was constructed to house the tablets of the 10 Commandments. It became a symbol of God's presence and faithfulness to his people. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, facing numerous challenges, including hunger and thirst. God provided manna from heaven and water from a rock, demonstrating his provision. Moses played a crucial role in guiding and leading the Israelites, often acting as a mediator between them and God. Despite moments of frustration and doubt, he remained faithful to his mission. God had promised the Israelites a land flowing with milk and honey, contingent on their obedience to his laws. The journey to claim this land was both a physical and spiritual challenge. Moses was allowed to view the Promised Land from Mount Nebo, but was not permitted to enter it. He died there, leaving behind a legacy of faith and leadership. Moses' life is a profound story of divine purpose, human perseverance, and unwavering faith. His journey from the Nile to Mount Nebo continues to inspire millions, reminding us of the power of faith and obedience. Why was Moses put in a basket as a baby? To save him from Pharaoh's decree to kill all newborn Hebrew boys. What is the significance of the burning bush? It symbolized God's presence and served as the moment Moses was called to lead the Israelites. Why did Moses hesitate to lead the Israelites? Well, he doubted his abilities and feared rejection, but God reassured him. How long did the Israelites wander in the wilderness? They wandered for 40 years due to their lack of faith and disobedience. What lessons can we learn from Moses' life? Faith, perseverance, and obedience to God can lead to extraordinary outcomes. The parting of the Red Sea is one of the most iconic miracles in the Bible and a defining moment in the story of Moses. This extraordinary event not only symbolized the Israelites' liberation from slavery, but also showcased God's immense power and faithfulness. After Pharaoh finally agreed to release the Israelites, following the devastating 10th plague, the death of the firstborn, they began their journey out of Egypt. However, Pharaoh soon regretted his decision. He gathered his army, including chariots and soldiers, and set out to recapture the fleeing Israelites. As the Israelites approached the Red Sea, they found themselves trapped between the vast body of water in front of them and Pharaoh's advancing army behind them. Panic set in among the Israelites as they feared imminent death or re-enslavement. They cried out to Moses, who reassured them, saying, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." Exodus 14:13. At this critical moment, God instructed Moses to stretch out his staff over the Red Sea. When Moses obeyed, a miraculous event unfolded. The waters of the Red Sea parted, creating a dry path through the middle of the sea. Towering walls of water stood on either side, allowing the Israelites to cross safely to the other side. The crossing was not a brief or hasty event. The Bible describes how the entire nation of Israel, including men, women, children, and livestock, made their way across the seabed during the night. The sight must have been awe-inspiring, a miraculous pathway through what was previously an impassable barrier. As the last of the Israelites stepped onto the far shore, Pharaoh's army, emboldened by their leader, entered the pathway created through the sea. However, their pursuit would end in disaster. At God's command, Moses stretched out his hand once more over the sea. As he did, the walls of water that had been held back surged back into their natural place. The returning waters engulfed Pharaoh's army, drowning the chariots, horses, and soldiers in the depths of the sea. Not a single member of Pharaoh's army survived. This dramatic conclusion was a powerful demonstration of God's protection over his chosen people. The Israelites stood on the far shore, watching as the mighty Egyptian forces were defeated in a single decisive moment. The parting of the Red Sea not only marked the Israelites' escape from Egypt, but also their full liberation from Pharaoh's grasp. In response, Moses and the Israelites sang a song of praise to God, known as the Song of the Sea, Exodus 15:1-18. In this song they celebrated God's power and faithfulness, declaring, "The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation." This event became a cornerstone of Israelite faith, frequently referenced in the Bible as a reminder of God's saving power and covenant with his people. The parting of the Red Sea remains one of the most profound examples of God's ability to make a way where there seems to be no way, teaching lessons of trust, faith, and divine deliverance. The Israelites returned to idol worship before Moses descended Mount Sinai with the Ten Commandments is a story that highlights their lack of faith and impatience. It is recorded in Exodus 32 and centers around the creation of the golden calf, a critical moment that demonstrated human frailty and the challenges of trust in unseen promises. When Moses ascended Mount Sinai to meet with God, he remained there for 40 days and nights. During this time, God provided him with detailed instructions for the covenant and inscribed the Ten Commandments on stone tablets. However, the Israelites, camped at the base of the mountain, grew restless and uncertain. From their perspective, Moses had disappeared, and they feared he might never return. This prolonged absence tested their faith as they began to doubt whether God or Moses would continue to lead them. In their desperation, the Israelites sought something tangible, a visible symbol of leadership and divine presence. They approached Aaron, Moses' brother and the appointed high priest, and demanded, "Come, make us gods who will go before us." As for this fellow Moses, who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him. Exodus 32, verse 1. Aaron, perhaps out of fear or a desire to pacify the crowd, complied with their request. He instructed them to collect gold earrings and ornaments which he melted down and fashioned into a golden calf. The golden calf was likely modeled after pagan deities the Israelites had encountered in Egypt. Once it was completed, the people declared, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." Exodus 32, verse 4. They offered sacrifices to the idol, celebrated with feasting, and indulged in revelry. This act of idol worship was a direct violation of their covenant with God, even though they had recently witnessed his miraculous works, such as the parting of the Red Sea, the provision of manna, and his presence as a pillar of cloud and fire. Despite these signs, their faith faltered when faced with uncertainty. Several factors contributed to their lapse into idol worship: a lack of patience. The Israelites struggled to wait for Moses' return. Their impatience led them to seek immediate gratification through visible and tangible objects. Influence of Egyptian culture. Having lived in Egypt for generations, the Israelites were likely influenced by Egyptian religious practices, which often involved idol worship. The golden calf may have felt familiar and reassuring to them, fear and insecurity. Without Moses to guide them, they felt abandoned and uncertain about their future. The golden calf served as a psychological crutch, giving them a false sense of control and security. Human weakness. The Israelites' actions reflected a broader human tendency to rely on what can be seen and touched, rather than placing faith in the unseen. While the Israelites celebrated their idol, God informed Moses of their betrayal and expressed his anger. He said, "They have quickly turned away from what I commanded them and have made themselves an idol." Exodus 32, verse 8. God even contemplated destroying them and starting anew with Moses, but Moses interceded on their behalf, pleading for mercy. When Moses descended from Mount Sinai carrying the stone tablets, he was met with the sight of the people worshipping the golden calf. In his anger, Moses shattered the tablets, symbolizing the broken covenant between God and his people. He then destroyed the idol, grinding it into powder, scattering it in water, and making the Israelites drink it. Moses also confronted Aaron, who weakly defended his actions by claiming that the calf had just appeared after the gold was thrown into the fire. Moses called for those loyal to God to stand with him, and the Levites responded, carrying out judgment on those who persisted in rebellion. This incident serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of impatience, doubt, and turning away from God. The Israelites' lapse into idolatry highlights the challenges of maintaining faith in difficult times, as well as the human tendency to seek comfort in what is immediate and tangible. Despite their failure, God ultimately forgave the Israelites and renewed his covenant with them. This act of mercy demonstrated his enduring love and willingness to restore those who repent. However, the golden calf episode stands as a cautionary tale about the consequences of losing trust in God's promises. The belief that the Israelites' historical defeats and eventual dispersal from their homeland were due to their disobedience of God's laws is a recurring theme in Jewish history and theology. This idea, rooted in the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, emphasizes the covenant relationship between God and the Israelites, in which blessings were promised for obedience and consequences for disobedience. According to the Bible, God made a covenant with the Israelites at Mount Sinai, giving them the 10 Commandments and other laws as a guide for righteous living. This covenant came with conditions. Faithfulness to God and adherence to His laws would ensure prosperity and protection, but turning away from God would result in punishment, exile, and hardship. This principle is repeated in passages like Deuteronomy 28, where blessings and curses are outlined depending on their obedience or rebellion. The Israelites' repeated failure to uphold their side of the covenant, including idolatry and social injustice, led to divine judgments. The fall of the northern kingdom, Israel. In 722 BCE, the Assyrian Empire conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. This event was attributed to the Israelites' idolatry and failure to follow God's commandments. 2 Kings 17:7-18. The Babylonian exile. In 586 BCE, the southern kingdom of Judah fell to the Babylonians under King Nebuchadnezzar. The destruction of the first temple and the exile of the Jewish people to Babylon was seen as punishment for their disobedience, particularly for neglecting the Sabbath and practicing idolatry. 2 Chronicles 36:15-21, the Roman conquest and the second exile. In 70 CE, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem following a Jewish revolt. This marked the beginning of a prolonged period of dispersion, the diaspora for the Jewish people. The establishment of the modern state of Israel in 1948 has been a contentious theological issue within Judaism. While many Jews view the return to the land as a fulfillment of biblical prophecies, others, particularly some ultra-Orthodox Jewish groups, see it differently. Some traditional Jewish interpretations hold that the Jewish people were exiled due to their sins, and that only God, through the coming of the Messiah, can restore them to their homeland. This perspective is grounded in the belief that human efforts to establish a Jewish state are premature and potentially an act of rebellion against God's will. Key points of this belief include waiting for the Messiah, who is seen as the one who will lead the Jewish people back to the land of Israel and usher in an era of global peace and divine justice. Some rabbis argue that attempting to reclaim the land without divine intervention violates the covenant and God's plan. One prominent group that holds this view is Neturei Karta, an anti-Zionist, ultra-Orthodox Jewish sect. They argue that the current state of Israel is illegitimate from a theological perspective, and that Jews must await the Messiah to return to their land in a God-ordained manner. Conversely, many Jews, particularly those aligned with Zionism, view the establishment of Israel as a miraculous event and a fulfillment of biblical prophecies such as those in Ezekiel 37, the vision of the dry bones, and Isaiah 11:11-12, which speak of the regathering of the Jewish people from the nations. This perspective sees the creation of the modern state of Israel as part of God's plan, even if it precedes the coming of the Messiah. The debate about the theological legitimacy of modern Israel reflects broader divisions within Judaism. While some see the return to the land as a divine blessing, others view it as a human effort that defies God's timeline. This tension underscores the complexity of Jewish theology and its relationship with modern geopolitics. The belief that the Jewish people were exiled due to disobedience and that their return should await the Messiah highlights the deep connection between faith, history, and identity in Judaism. While interpretations differ, this debate reflects the ongoing struggle to reconcile ancient covenantal promises with contemporary realities. For many, the ultimate answer lies in divine revelation yet to come.